set your mind back to 2003. That is the year, believe it or not, that LinkedIn was founded. It's kind of crazy to think that before 2003, actually, that there really was no place that everyone agreed on was the place to go to view your digital resume. And even it took some time for that to grow, but really it's been just about 20 years that this thing has existed that we all now go to for everything professional. And another date, even 2014, it wasn't until then that you could actually publish posts. LinkedIn that we know today, the scrolling the feeds, the commenting, building your personal brand building wasn't a thing at the time other than people who would publish books. And so this thing, if you think about the world of business and our professional lives, is still relatively new. And that's the topic of today's podcast on the PreSales podcast. I'm Jack Cochran, General Manager of PreSales Collective and your host. And with me, as always, is my fantastic co-host, Matthew James.
Hey, Jack. It's great to be speaking. We had an awesome conversation with Raphael Joseph today about what you should be doing with your LinkedIn right now. And if you're anything like me, you're going to leave this conversation with some practical tips and maybe a little bit of fire under your seat to think I should go be improving my LinkedIn right now.
Absolutely. I definitely have some things that I need to do right after I hang up with this call. I'm going to hop into Canva, fix my banner, fix a couple things. But I think no matter where you're at in your personal background building journey, you're going to get something out of it today. Anything else, Matthew, that you would add before we hop into the interview?
Make sure you stick around and hear my LinkedIn profile get a little bit of that heat. Let's see what Raph thinks about me. But that's all we've got. Let's hop in right after the break.
Thank you, Opine, for sponsoring this episode. SEs, let's be real. You didn't sign up for this job to babysit spreadsheets, play email tag, or spend your life updating CRMs. Your time is worth more than that. That's why Opine exists, to automate the admin work and let AI handle the chaos so you can focus on what actually wins deals, strategic selling. Here's how it works. Opine's AI syncs with Slack, Gong, Zoom, email, and your CRM, automatically analyzing deal context, summarizing calls, and ensuring every proof of value, or POC, stays on track before you or your stakeholders even think about it. Performance tracking, done. Stakeholder updates, Opine auto updates stakeholders, scores deal risks, and delivers real-time reporting without you lifting a finger. While other platforms still make you manually update everything, Opine pulls it all together so you spend less time on admin and more time closing. The future of pre-sales isn't manual, it's AI-powered. See for yourself at tryopine.com, where pre-sales work flows. Raphael, before we get kicked off, care to give us a little bit of a background about yourself?
So I've been in employment now since university, 25 years. So I was a computer science grad, software developer, over the years have moved into different roles, but a few years back, started up a recruitment business and recently started up a AI training business as well that very much lends into the AI recruitment side of things. And so here I am today to share, I suppose, some of those secrets, having moved from the world of being a software developer to a sales engineer into the recruitment and AI world.
Raph, could you tell us more about that? We were just connecting. We both did our time at banking. You made it 10 years. I was there for 1. So after those 10 years, how did you get to where we are today?
The first 10 years was pretty much hardcore development, in banking on derivatives trading desks, very mathematical development, almost the precursor to some of the machine learning tools that you'll see today, although in those days it was called more algorithmic trading. And I suppose we didn't know where things would go today. I finished my career pretty much after the banking crisis happened, which was an awful time, to be in banking and everything that went on there. And so I actually moved into an area that I'd always had an interest in, which was video. And through, a little stint of doing something on my own, ended up with a relatively early stage SaaS business. So I moved over onto the vendor side. Because really and truly, I was a developer, but the truth is I was never the best developer. And if you really wanted to be the best developer in the area that I was in, I then needed to go and get a PhD in mathematics, and it just wasn't the path that I wanted to go down. So I moved into the area that I knew I was good at, which was speaking. So I love tech and I love talking, which typically are the two areas that most sales engineers find themselves in because they're good at those two things. And so I started as the first SE, and over, I think, a 9-year period, built a global team of just over 40 SEs. They also comprised of an RFP team as well. But it was just an crazy journey going from a company. We went public during that period, but it was always tech that I loved. It was always the technology. It was always talking about the tech. Even as a manager, I still couldn't pull myself away from going into meetings and still doing demos, even though I didn't have the time or wasn't supposed to, but I always did that. And so after having hired so many people, I decided to just do it for myself and start hiring SEs. And as AI came in, just as I was starting this up, it became apparent that, trying to find SEs that fit more into what I would call AI first businesses. So not companies that just have an AI attachment to their product, but AI first companies looking for SEs that can go in and help with adoption of AI, transformation of AI inside the businesses, and which led me to the company that I've also set up now, which is training companies in how to use AI. So almost going back to my SE days, because I always think great SEs are great teachers.
Definitely going full circle there, right? And software engineering into then, well, I can use this to help sell with this, and then building a team, realizing the need for AI, which I think speaks a lot to potentially kind of your perspective on things, which is why I was excited to have you on the show. It seems like you're always looking at what's the implications of this and what's next. And I think that's the part that I'm excited to get into talking about, the whole idea of your perspective and your branding, especially in light of the current market as an SC, with the implications of AI. I've certainly spent a lot of time doing my own personal branding. It's actually a big part of me actually getting the role that I have today. But I'm sure not everyone has really considered the implications of that on their career. From your experience, how has it impacted your career, and what would you have potentially missed out if you hadn't been doing it?
I was never big into actually the personal branding side of things. In fact, I'm a Luddite in many ways to it. I'm not on any social media. I really entered into the journey of personal branding around 2.5 years ago. But my understanding and my sort of perspective on it now is not even from a personal one, where I do my own personal branding, which I do, but it's more from having spent so much time in the recruitment market for SEs, speaking to hiring managers and how people got jobs, and speaking to SEs and understanding how it has helped them, that really changed me to just understand how important it is. We can delve into that, if you like, in a little bit more detail, but I'm a complete and utter, not even convert to this. I believe in it so wholeheartedly for SEs.
Was that just when you were hiring your own teams, or was it more when you were doing the recruiting that you started to see that importance?
It was doing the recruiting, because I got to see it from the perspective of the hiring managers. And particularly during that period where AI was also coming into everybody's lives, it was the combination of these two things together, and the explosion actually of LinkedIn as a social media platform, which I think has really only been probably for the past couple of years as well. That is also the big change. So all of these separate things all came together at the same time.
Raph, you said you are not on social media. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can we do a quick round robin? So I'll name one. You tell me whether you have it or not. Facebook.
No.
X/Twitter.
So I did have a what I would call a read-only profile on X, but I have also just got rid of that.
Now here's the kicker, and you did bring it up. LinkedIn.
Yeah. So it is a social media platform, because you behave towards it in exactly the same way as you would any other social media platform. And the algorithms are very similar, and you spend the time scrolling and so on. But the purpose of it is very different, because it's a professional social media platform. And the power of using social media for getting new clients, which is what I used it for on a personal level with the recruitment business, and it was hugely powerful. But also for finding a job, and not actually just finding a job, but preparing yourself and setting yourself up for your next job, which I think is the most important thing. And part of what I realized was, because I was, entered recruitment when the market was bad, when things were really bad, there were a lot of redundancies or layoffs, as you call them in the US. There were a lot of layoffs going on. And I spent a lot of time just giving my time to SEs, speaking to them. They'd been laid off. They really didn't know what they were doing, where they were. It was a difficult time for many of them. And what I realized is that they then wanted to start the LinkedIn journey at that moment when they had been laid off. And the thing about LinkedIn is it takes time to build your profile. It takes time to build your connections because you can only add about 100 to 200 per week. And you're sort of starting at the point when you most needed it. And my advice to so many SEs was start your LinkedIn journey now. Things might be going brilliantly for you in your current job. You might see this incredible trajectory where you're going to become manager and move or whatever it is that you want to become. And actually, it's a really great plan B, for want of a better way of looking at it, that build your LinkedIn profile, build your connections, build your persona, and we can go into a bit more detail about what each one of those means. But what you really don't want to be doing, if you can help it, is starting your LinkedIn journey at the moment that you need it the most. That's when you want to call on it.
I mean, it's that adage of like, it's a good idea to check your parachute before you jump out of the plane. When you're on solid ground, that's when you want to make sure everything's set. Not when you need the parachute is not the time to prepare the parachute.
And that's when people, understandably, because they're finding that the job market is different to what it was. It doesn't work in the same way anymore. Just some statistics on LinkedIn, and just incredible statistics. There are about 1 billion people on LinkedIn, around 750 million, billion. And the incredible thing is that only 1% of people post on LinkedIn. It feels like everyone's posting all over the place, but actually they're not. Only 1% of people are posting on LinkedIn. And then you sort of drill down to sales engineers and then think about how many of them are posting. And you start to get a sense that actually you can make a real difference. You can actually put your head above the crowd and stand out if you just have that consistency and that consistent approach towards it.
It definitely feels like everyone's on there. There's too much noise going on. It definitely feels like there's way too much useless content going on. And there's also, I would say, because we see a comment about this right now from Clifford about not building my brand outside of my corporate life. I feel like a lot of people who post are just posting as marketing repeat antennas for their companies as well, which is not actually helping your brand in the slightest. Of that 1%, it's an even smaller percent who are posting something that's a meaningful, original content you'd actually want to read.
The thing is that it's a personal brand. So just as a very small example, the number of people that either A, don't have a LinkedIn banner. The most prime real estate on LinkedIn is your LinkedIn banner. And the number of people that just don't have anything there, or they have their current company's banner there, and they're basically doing free advertising for their company. And I always used to say, your LinkedIn banner is your profile. It needs to highlight who you are, the value that you offer to potential hiring managers. And you can go onto Canva and just in 5 minutes create a really good LinkedIn banner for yourself that really highlights who you are, the things that differentiate you from the other SEs that are out there. And so don't use the things that all SEs are good at, like solution selling or demos or customer first, or every single SE are those things. Try and find the things that really distinguish you, maybe the industry that you're in, the vertical that you're in, the technologies that you really understand, something that will really hone in on who you are.
So starting with the LinkedIn banner, when you were looking at candidates, what's the kind of thing that would stick out to you as a strong personal brand?
This is a great question. When I was looking at candidates, remember the perspective I was looking at them from was the perspective of a recruiter. And equally, I was looking at it from the perspective of the hiring manager as well, because I was to some degree taking the role of the hiring manager when I was looking for these people. So one thing that changed a lot, I would say, over the last 3 years in the market, in the jobs market, was that specificity basically trumped broadness. And so we moved from a world where companies couldn't hire fast enough and they were willing to take a view on people. If you sort of gave your life story or your entire autobiography about every single thing that you'd ever done in your life and put it onto LinkedIn, people would look at it and take a view and think, okay, but we moved to a world that was completely upside down, to where companies and recruiters were only looking for people who had very, very specific knowledge in the area that the job was for. And looking at people's LinkedIn profiles, this is the one thing that used to strike me, is that I couldn't figure out who they were, what it was that they were offering, what was their USP. They were putting generic things in their subtitles like solutions engineer, customer focused. things like, well, of course. I mean, you would never expect a solutions engineer not to be those things, but tell me in an easy way, what is it that makes you unique? Are you a highly technical solutions engineer? Are you a developer? Do you have a DevOps background? Are you an expert in the telecommunications space, or whatever it may be? Highlight the things that make you different. And even though that may disregard you from some roles, it is far better in the current market to have a higher statistical chance of getting a few roles than a low statistical chance of spreading yourself wide across many roles. And that, I think, is one thing that many SEs have not figured out yet, somehow, but not everyone.
Can I offer myself up as an example almost for everyone who's listening? So maybe you can translate this into your own words. Here are maybe 3 things that I know my profile highlights, and I would love your take on it. What could people at home take away and do better? So I think the 3 things that my profile typically highlights is New York City, financial services, selling into financial services, working with financial services partners, and APIs. What would you think about that in terms of specificity, and what would make it better?
I mean, those are 3 brilliant things, because let's put it this way. You want to almost start with the role, start with the job, and reverse engineer your LinkedIn profile from the role. So I always say to candidates, go and find 3 or 4 roles that would be perfect for you and reverse engineer your LinkedIn profile based on those, and ask yourself the question, if you were hiring for those roles and you looked at your LinkedIn profile, would you immediately go for you? And you've just highlighted that exactly. If I had a role for a financial services company that was looking for a highly technical sales engineer who understood APIs and integrations and who was living in New York City, because most companies these days want some form of hybrid employment, you are going to be top of their list. And you are immediately there, and you've given yourself a high chance already. All the other things that you've done, especially the things which are commonplace across all SEs, absolutely no point in talking about them.
So I shouldn't mention that I'm really good at looking at Salesforce reports.
No. Again, you look at it from the perspective of the hiring manager. You are your own product. It may be a horrible way of looking at it, but it is very true. You are selling yourself. You are a product. And when you're selling a product, all SEs understand this concept of value proposition. What is your value proposition? What are you selling about yourself? What makes you unique? What value are you giving, and what problem are you solving for the hiring manager? If you are not explaining that in your LinkedIn profile, you are doing yourself a disservice. Your LinkedIn profile is not about putting your autobiography. It's not about showing all of your friends how amazing your status is and your job titles. It's not about showing your family and your parents how amazing you are. It's about one thing and one thing only. You have a product to sell. That product is you. And you need to do the best thing possible to sell it to your ICP. And your ICP in this case is the hiring manager for the roles that you want to go for.
I have a take on this, and I actually want to get your view on this take, because one thing that I experienced when I was hiring is I would get resumes that would list my skills as like a block of like 70 different skills that they have. And this was very common. I would see this all over the place, just listing every single skill that they think they have. My take was always, oh, so no specialization, no actual skill, because I feel like the more you add to that, the more it dilutes everything on the list. Versus I knew specifically if I was hiring for someone who needed to have MarTech experience, let's say they had it on the list, but it was also there with software development. It was there with financial services. It was there with retail. It was there with point of sale system, software engineering. I would go, oh, so this is just a grab bag. It's possible that person had all those skills, but because they felt like they needed to be available to hire for every industry, they lost the focus and they lost me of thinking them as a specialist. Is that your same take as well? I feel like you need to focus in on what industry or specialization you want to go for and move your profile that direction.
If people only took one thing away from this discussion today, it is that. I would say 3 things. When I speak to candidates, I ask them, and they can't even answer me. Sometimes I say to them, tell me, what are the 3 things that make you special? What are the 3 things that define you as a sales engineer? And they're like, oh, well, I'm really good at this. And I was like, no, all sales engineers do that. What defines you? What is your USP? What industries have you got really great experience in? What technologies have you got great experience in? What are the things that define you? And I think the worry, and I understand this worry, is that they think that if they don't put everything, they are potentially stopping themselves from, sort of being in it to win it sort of mentality. Like, if I'm in everything, then I've got a chance of everything. You are right. If you list 70 things, you probably have a chance of being found in a search. If that's the way that you're being found, you've probably got a chance of being found in a search for all those 70 things, but your chances are 1 or 2%. Would you not rather have a 60 to 70% chance of being found in a search for 4 roles than a 1 to 2% chance for being found in a search of 70 roles? And that is where I think the difference is. When the market is an employer market rather than a candidate market, you don't want to just be another SE in the sea of people that are out there. You want to have something that makes you unique for that hiring manager. And as I said, this is very market specific. When the market is candidate focused and there are roles, all the companies are searching for too few candidates, it's a very different situation. Then you can broaden what you offer to the market. But in a market like this, it's different. You have to change that mentality based on the market that we're in.
Your candidacy, your skills, that's the product that you're selling. I think this is a lesson that a lot of sales engineers will resonate with from their experience in accounts. You want to be focusing on that ICP. You said it. You don't want to be spreading yourself wide, reaching out to every single person that has ever Googled one of your keywords, but who are those people that you really want to be talking to? Let's move that percentage up to 60 to 70%. And that's how you make a winning cycle in this case.
Reverse engineer from the job. Find 3 or 4 jobs online that would be perfect for you. And your LinkedIn profile should shout that you are the person for those jobs.
And when you say profile, you mean everything, including your banner, your text you put into your description for your job history, but also your posts as well?
Yeah. So let's start at the top. Your LinkedIn banner, right? So your banner should also highlight your USPs and maybe have another picture of yourself. I think a picture is important. Again, this isn't Facebook, it's LinkedIn. Have a professional picture of yourself, because perception is incredibly important. Like it or not, people have a perception, and having a good professional photo of yourself rather than one of you traveling with a backpack on in wherever. That's a great Facebook picture, but it's not a professional picture. And then you have your subtitle underneath your picture. And again, that should restate what your USPs are and who you are. It can have your title, Matthew James, solutions engineer or senior solutions engineer with a pipe, and then your specialities, fintech, finance, APIs, whatever, that may be. And then you go into your career history. Now, one tip, and I've given this to so many SEs, is you don't need to put the title of your role as it is in your contract, because some companies have crazy names for solutions engineers, and all you need to put is a truthful description of what it is you do. So if you are performing the role as a pre-sales engineer, then you can put pre-sales engineer or solutions engineer as your title, even though the company that hired you might have given you the title in your contract as technical sales specialist or whatever, right? You don't need to put that. As long as you can stand behind it and it is truthful, use an industry standard term so that when recruiters or employers are searching for you, they're not going to search for that very unique sort of idiosyncratic term that your company has given you. They're going to search for the industry term, pre-sales engineer, solutions engineer, and so on. And in your description for those roles, tell people about the value that you offer. What did you do that's going to tell the hiring manager that this is the person that I need to hire?
One thing that I actually don't like is when I see people not putting some type of an indication of their role in that line. Instead, they put connecting customers to value. I don't know what you do. And it's going to now provide an extra click for me to go through and figure out that, oh, you're an engineer in pharma. I don't know how you feel about that. I actually always hated that. Like, let me know who you are right off the bat. What do you do?
That's why I say the first thing that you should have is senior solutions engineer or solutions engineering manager. Also, and this is a really important one, when you comment on people's posts in LinkedIn, I think only the first 6 words of your subtitle come up. So if you've written something like dedicated my career to helping, but all that people see is dedicated my career to, and that's it. They have no idea what you've dedicated your career to. And also, to be honest, hiring managers don't care what you've dedicated your career to. What they care is, what value are you going to give me? How are you going to solve my problem? Coming back to that value proposition again. I'm looking for a solutions engineer that says senior solutions engineer, and then the next word that comes in is fintech. So I'm immediately have seen that they're a solutions engineer for fintech. I'm already onto a winner.
And you're making it easy for people to understand why they should connect with you. I think that's the biggest takeaway, right? Making it as easy as possible, especially because like the comments you make on posts, that's a good point I want to bring up as well, because it's not just you posting, it's also you engaging with others' posts as well. And your comment, your face showing up there with that title and that subtitle is very important to your brand building as well. In fact, I think there's some people who've said you should spend more time commenting on others' posts and engaging with others on their posts than even posting your own. Is that your take as well?
I suppose the three things that you want to do are connect with people. So find your ICP. In the case of a solutions engineer, you're selling yourself. This is a personal brand. So your ICP are potential hiring managers of the future. On a weekly basis, you should be connecting with 100 to 200 ICPs, hiring managers, solutions engineering hiring managers, or heads of sales, because of course, sometimes they are the hiring managers for the SEs. So you want to, on a weekly basis, be connecting to 100 to 200, bearing in mind that if you carry that on for a 12-month period, you're looking at like 5,000 connections that you can make. And there's a cumulative factor of this. So that's the first thing that you want to be doing on a weekly basis. You don't need to write them a message. You just go and find them in LinkedIn. You can do a search for, in quotes, solutions engineering manager, bring them up and just go and connect with 100 of them a week. Do it a few times a week. You don't have to do it all in one go. Then you should be posting on their posts. So once they've connected with you, you should be commenting on their posts. And everybody loves people to comment on their posts. And typically, if you ask a question, they'll respond. So you've already had this sort of touch point. They've seen who you are already. You've put a really good comment and a really good question. So you're already on their radar. Even subconsciously, you're on their radar for the future. For those who are a bit nervous about posting, you can spend the first couple of months entering this world of LinkedIn just by commenting. Just by connecting with people and commenting, getting yourself comfortable with writing, seeing your face up there, and then you can enter into the world of posting. And again, your posts should be all based around your speciality. You know, not reposting what everyone else is doing, your authentic content. I went to see a client today and this is what happened, and just talking about it, talking about problems that you've solved, talking about things that you see. And I guarantee you, every single one of you, every single SE is a speciality in their space. And you will have so many things to talk about. And on a weekly basis, you are probably speaking to 10, 15, 20 customers. If you're telling me out of all of those discussions that there are 2 posts that can come out of that, I think there is a problem.
Do you have any tips for people who think that the problems they're solving maybe aren't interesting enough to put in front of an audience? Like, someone's probably already solved this before. What do I have to say on this topic?
I mean, the truth is, it's probably not interesting to everybody. I mean, my wife is not a technologist. She finds the things that I, used to post about and SE things utterly boring. But then I used to get a few thousand people viewing my posts, sometimes 20, 30, 40 people commenting on them, engaging with each other about it. And so there is an audience for your topics. If there's one thing in this world that we know, is that there are niche audiences for every single topic that is out there. And while your friends on LinkedIn might not find your content very appealing or interesting, there are going to be people who are, Matthew, if you start posting on problems that you see within fintech as a solutions engineer and all that, there are people who are going to find that interesting. And by the way, as soon as your title comes up and says, I was in a customer meeting today about fintech and solutions engineering, it's like immediately, like any solutions engineer that is in the fintech space is going to click on your post because it is so specific to what they do. Do not worry that what you have to say is not interesting. And some posts will fare better than others. There is no doubt about that. And you will figure out which posts are interesting, have a mix of where you offer value from things that you've learned or things that you didn't know that you learned. That's a great post. I found something out today that I just didn't know about. I guarantee you, that old thing, isn't it? When you're in a room and you're scared to ask a question, you can be sure that there's another 10 people that also want to ask the same question.
I feel like there's a little bit also of something that we should call out. The difference between your post doing well and your post being useful for the purpose of your job search are two very different things, I feel like. Because a lot of people get very focused on how many impressions, which first off, how impressions work on LinkedIn. It's a terrible thing to pay attention to, honestly. But even how many engagements that you get or how many people comment on it, you get very, very focused on that. And you start to think, well, maybe my ideas aren't contributing. Keep in mind, if the focus of what you're doing, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the focus of what you're doing is to build your brand so that when someone's looking up your profile down the road, or when you reach out to someone saying, hey, I see the role on your team, would love to connect. And they then do the research. What's all this person's posts? Your ideas are going to show up. Even if only one person ever viewed it or one person ever liked it, that idea is there. And that's what someone's going to review when they go review your profile. And that's what you want to have, is showing this consistent, bringing ideas to the table, showing off your brand, less important than how well the individual posts do.
100%. Look at it from the perspective of the hiring manager. If you are the hiring manager and you're looking for a solutions engineer, again, we'll use the fintech example. You're looking for a solutions engineer in fintech who understands APIs. And you go and find this person because you've done a search and they came up, you went and saw their subtitle, it said solutions engineer fintech. You're like, okay, this looks good. Go and click in. And all that person has been doing is posting about fintech and solutions engineering fintech and the fintech industry and all of that. You look at it and you just think, it's a natural human way of looking at it. You think, wow, this person really knows what they're talking about. They are engaged in this topic. And it is an immediate, I know people who have been laid off and immediately got roles because there were hiring managers who had been following their content on LinkedIn. And the moment that they then posted, I've been laid off, big layoff at the company, and thanks for this, immediately, they were immediately contacted by people who had been following them. And as soon as they saw they were available, they got excited about it and thought, wow, I'll have them immediately.
That's the thing that definitely can't happen, right? But it has to happen with, as we said, you have to prep for it now when things are good. That post that you make about you getting laid off or you now looking for a job, those posts get ridiculous amounts of reach. You want to have your profile there set up so that when you make that post, which is going to go do really well, people have something to look back on. Oh, or they already recognize you. They know who you are when it pops up on their feed.
I cannot count the number of times I've spoken to people who are job searching and they're quite far into it. They were getting quite anxious about it. And then I just went and looked at their LinkedIn profile and it's like they haven't touched it for 5 years, or they just barely touched it. And they've spent so much time on their resume, incredible amounts of time. And I'm just thinking, your resume lives on your hard drive. You send it to 1 or 2 people if they ask for it. Whereas your LinkedIn profile is immediately visible to over 750 million people if they so wanted to find it. And it's also visible to all those recruiters who are out there who are doing keyword searches on your LinkedIn profile. And it's like you spend so long on your resume, and your LinkedIn profile is orders of magnitude more important than your resume. In fact, my opinion is forget your resume. Just create your LinkedIn profile and then just export it to PDF, and there's your resume for you.
I feel like that actually would work better. Any final thoughts on LinkedIn profile building, etc.?
It is scary, particularly when you do your first post. I remember my first post on LinkedIn. I was sending it to my sisters, my wife, my mother. Everybody was having a look. Is this okay? Is this like... And now I just write it, press it, and I only ever go back and look at it if someone has commented on it, because you need to quickly respond to it. But it is very natural to feel nervous about it. But start the journey, dip your toe in, start commenting, create your LinkedIn profile. It takes 6 to 12 months to build up your following and a profile on LinkedIn. So the sooner you begin, the sooner you can actually really rely on it when the moment comes.
Great advice. Raphael Joseph, thanks so much for being here. Look forward to talking to you in the next episode. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the PreSales Podcast. These shows are recorded live during our bi-weekly LinkedIn show called PreSales Live and include a listener Q&A after each recording. To find information on the live show, head to presalescollective.com/podcast, follow the PreSales Collective page on LinkedIn, or join the PreSales Collective Slack. We have a dedicated channel for the PreSales Podcast where you can find more information and join in the conversation after the show. We'll see you next time.